talking about how to scale before a sale.
Delighted to be here.
Excellent. So the audience here is in-house lawyers in fintechs. And think about compliance. They may or may not like compliance. They probably see the value, but I bet in a lot of cases their bosses, the CEOs and so forth, might see compliance as something overall it's going to slow the business down and make it worse. What do you think? Does compliance equal bad for the business?
Well, there's no doubt that compliance is something that businesses have to spend time and resources on. So the question is not whether to do compliance or not to do compliance. It's about whether you can do compliance in a way that both protects you from a regulatory point of view, but also supports the business. So an example of that where I've seen this work well or make a difference is board or committee meetings, where you have a more structured process for decision making to make sure that everyone has the same information, can make decisions together, and that means quite often that sometimes you find out that different parts of the business have different ideas about what's happening on certain things, and could kind of then align as a result of that kind of structured sharing of information. And you also get much better quality of discussion because people have the information they need for the discussion. It's been thought through in advance what needs to be discussed and how and so on. And so that can actually lead to better decision making for the business as a whole, not just on compliance issues. And it's actually interesting how often those kind of meetings actually, which start off maybe on a compliance topic, actually push into actually a broader general business discussion.
So I know that you were a GC at a fintech in a past life. So was that your experience that a little bit more structure and focus on compliance actually helped to bring things together a bit?
Yes, I mean quite often, for example, you might be looking at a new product or feature, and the discussion at the risk and compliance meeting committee would actually bring out issues around more broadly how the product would work, how it would be designed, beyond just regulatory stuff, but actually just like the actual core features of the product.
Okay, so it sounds like not just necessary burden, but turn compliance into something that you should welcome and harness for the benefits it brings.
Absolutely, I totally think that's the case, and I think that where you can, you should try to design compliance processes so that they support the business and actually are part of good business as well as being good from a compliance point of view.
Nice. Okay, so Omar, we talked a bit about the why on compliance and the benefits that actually, if it's done well, can bring the wider business. I wanted to ask you about the how. And so within the how, like, reflecting on your experience as a GC and now at Fox Williams, like, what's the best way of tackling these compliance projects? Is it just that you get a bunch of specialists in compliance/legal, they own that and they just really smash that project and leave everyone else to concentrate on what they do well?
Well, I think compliance should definitely be looking at how it can support the business and make their life easier and make compliance as straightforward as possible. But I also think it's very important for all the functions in a firm to work closely with compliance. And I think that's basically for two reasons. So the first reason is you just can't get that stuff done properly without working with functions across the firm. So if you look at in a fintech, for example, technology will be central to everything from the customer journey to cybersecurity, your risk management, your third-party vendor management, and so on. So you have to be working with technology. For marketing, you need to be making sure that your marketing is compliant with the financial promotion rules. Finance, you need to be looking at, if you're a payments firm, safeguarding. If you're a bank or an investment firm, prudential kind of compliance with regulatory capital requirements. So you can't do things just in isolation.
Okay, but I imagine working, it must be tempting, right? Because if you're the specialist, you just can run ahead with it. It must be quite complicated, a little slow working cross-functionally.
Yeah, it can be slow, and I think that's why relationships are really important. And so it's not just it's building that relationship to be able to get things done effectively and deliver the things you need to deliver. And I mean, the second reason I think kind of cross-functional working is really, really important on the regulatory and compliance side is because you need to have a shared approach to things. So if you're taking decisions about risk, there needs to be a shared understanding of why you're taking those decisions, because things are not always black and white. And I think that rather than having an approach of, legal says you can do this, you can't do that, without any real explanation, or just kind of as long as if it's like kind of being passed down from the mountain, you need to have that joint kind of mature approach where you can have that discussion and people can really understand why it is that certain decisions are made, or they can influence on exactly what decisions you make with an understanding of what the regulatory landscape is.
Yeah, and I think overall part of what you're saying is not having a situation where legal is just a black box and no one understands why they're saying yes or no or maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that it's better to be open and say the answer isn't always clear, rather than to pretend that legal or compliance has all the answers and that it's just always the case that that they just say no to something, rather than kind of actually having that challenge as well.
Nice. So collaborative working and strong relationships.
Exactly.
Omar, compliance. We've talked about why, we've talked a little bit about how, but before we end, I want to ask, is there one thing that you think often gets overlooked?
Yes, I think process.
Process.
Process is just something that is very important, but isn't talked about that much. It's just not that sexy.
Okay.
No one really wants to, spend their time talking about, how they do this and that from a process point of view, when they could be discussing the latest regulation that's come in, or the latest fine from a regulator. But actually, it's actually very, very practical, and quite often we see where firms have dropped the ball. It's been where they just haven't done the process side of things properly, and that's where you get problems. But good process means efficiency.
Can you give us any examples?
Yeah, product design. So having a good product design process can actually make things better for compliance, but also better for other parts of the business. It can mean that issues with products are identified earlier in the process, so you don't spend resource developing something that won't work for some reason or another. It can mean that parts of the business further down the chain kind of know what's coming and can prepare better. So, for example, marketing might be more aware of what products are being developed and what stage they're at and so on. So that's somewhere where a good product development process can both help compliance, but also help the business and create efficiency. And that's really important when you want to scale as well, because as you scale, you need that efficiency. And if you haven't got that, it's going to be harder and harder to be successful.
And we are, after all, talking about how to scale before you sell.
Exactly.
Omar, before we wrap, are you someone who really, really likes checklists?
Yes.
Go on.
Well, I use checklists in my personal life, and I use them at work. I find them very good for making me think about what my priorities are and what I should be doing each day and what I shouldn't be doing, and keeping a track of that. So I love them from that perspective. I also know that there is research that shows that checklists can be very effective in all kinds of settings, from surgery to airlines. And I think so therefore, yeah, I do think that structure is important and is beneficial, but you need to always do it in a sensible way as well. And I think that's part of the art of compliance or other setting, is getting that balance between organization and process and common sense at the same time.
Well, if it works for surgeons and it works for pilots, maybe it's good enough for regulatory lawyers as well.
Exactly.
Omar, thank you so much for taking part in this.
Thank you.